Okay, so lying on your back, legs can take any shape. Arms are simply relaxed, perhaps by your side, or if it feels good, you could place them on your body somewhere that reminds you to send a little healing, a little compassion to yourself, to that area. And today we'll be focusing on the lower body, specifically getting into the areas of our hamstrings and our hips. So as you lie here, finding that sense of stillness, bring your awareness to the outer hips, where you could imagine your hip bones are left and right. And imagining those bones, whatever you imagine those to look like, and start to travel your awareness down the outer thighs. Where the outer thigh turns into the side of your knee. And bringing awareness to the backs of your knees. And where the backs of knees become backs of thighs. And up the body where that thigh turns into the sits bones, the glutes. And feeling the weight of your body settling in that space. Bringing a gentle awareness back down and around, this time to the inner thigh, the groin area. Traveling awareness down the inner thighs to the inner knees. And floating awareness to the kneecaps. Up the fronts of your thighs. And where thighs transform into the front of your hips. And for the next few moments here, let the awareness travel just above that into your belly. And with as little effort as possible, breathe into that space. The movement may be very gentle. As you inhale, the belly softly lifts, expands, and as you exhale, everything relaxes. And with just a bit of effort here, take a very deep breath. Filling the belly, filling your chest. Pause on full. And through your mouth, sigh it out. Let's do 2 more of those at our pace. Inhaling pretty deep. Pausing for a moment before sighing it out. Letting the breath return to natural. effortless. And when you're ready, find the great stretch. Arms reach up and over, toes point, stretch fingers and toes. And then exhale, bring your knees to your chest. Very gently rock side to side. And then grab for your strap, or whatever you're using as a strap. And pause your movement, keep your right knee hugged in, and let your left foot either rest on the earth or extend, whichever one feels best. And then bring the center of your prop to the arch or heel of your right foot. Start to extend Supta Padangustasana, or hand to big toe pose. We don't ever really need to reach our hand to our big toe. That's why this strap is so handy. Good. Pausing in your stretch where you feel that there's maybe a sensation level of a 6. Your knee doesn't have to be fully straight for that to happen. But endeavor to allow the backs of your shoulders to be to the mat and your arms pretty straight. So reaching up on the strap enough to make that happen. Shoulders down, arms straight, but relaxed. Our only action here is holding onto the strap, very gently pushing the right foot into your strap. A subtle little movement. We'll take 3 more breaths in our stretch. And if your left leg is extended, bring the left foot to the earth. So bend that knee. And even walk your left foot heel toe to the left just a little bit. Act kind of like a kickstand. And bring the strap into your right hand. Left arm can be anywhere. And notice where your lower back is, that the hips are even side to side. There's weight even side to side. We're going to find a stretch in the outer right hip. So right foot starts to cross the midline of your body, floats to the left, but keep your right lower back glued to the earth. So we're maybe going or traveling maybe 6 inches to the left with our leg, maybe a foot. Good. Holding onto the strap with the right hand might kind of help us not to go too far to the left. Taking 2 more deep breaths. Registering sensation wherever you feel it. And gentle abdominal engagement to bring your right leg back to center. And then we'll go for the inner thigh stretch. So dropping your right leg out to the right this time, opposite direction. However far it goes to feel a stretch in your inner thigh. Keeping the breath smooth and steady. When you're ready, little bend in that right knee to come back to center. Release your strap and set it to the side. Bring both knees into your chest and then drop your knees to the left. We'll find a twist, arms take any shape. And let this be a restorative twist, which means we're not efforting really in any way, letting the body just melt. If the feet kind of travel further away from your head naturally, that's fine. allowing your head to relax or release in any direction. For me, my head just naturally wants to turn to the right, and that's comfortable. So wherever your head is relaxed, just let that be. In these kinds of classes where we try to effort less, it can be helpful to maintain a gentle focus on the exhale. When we exhale, we're inviting our parasympathetic response, which is the part of our nervous system that relaxes, that rests. It makes room for digestion and for healing. Let's take 3 more breaths, allowing that exhale to be just a bit longer than the inhale. Gentle abdominal support to bring your knees back to center. And then find a little movement. You might like independent knee circles. You might like knees together, circling the knees in one direction and then the other. And we'll find the opposite side. Make sure your strap is nearby. Setting your right foot down or extending it as you wish. And then bringing your strap to your left foot and begin to extend it. And making space for this side to be relatively different. Maybe there's more room in the hamstrings. Maybe there's more sensation in the hamstrings. Maybe you're registering this in the calf or the back of your thigh. I would say that if it's predominantly sensational in the back of your knee, give your knee a little more of a bend. Again, reaching for your strap so that the shoulders are drawn back and relaxed. The arms are relatively straight and soft. And then allow some awareness to rest on the exhale. Inviting a sense of release in your body. Letting the breath kind of guide that release generally. And the hamstrings or back of your leg will eventually follow suit and respond in the tissues. All right, if your right leg is extended, plant that foot. I like to walk it out to the right just a little bit, not enough that it hurts your knee in any way. And then strap into your left hand. And I'll turn a little bit so in case you were confused before. Lower back is glued down. The only thing that's moving is the left leg toward the right. So we're twisting across the body, but we're really not twisting because our pelvis is staying very steady. Our hips are still square to the ceiling and the floor. And we do this to look for a stretch somewhere in the outer hip. I'm still feeling it in the hamstrings for sure. And once you're there, a few breaths. Little core support to bring your left leg back through center and then all the way toward the left, opening the leg for inner thigh, inner hamstring stretch. Using as little effort as possible to be here. Core support to bring your leg back to center. Release your strap. And find the great stretch once again. Stretching the legs and arms in opposite directions. You might pause here and stretch through the right side, fingers and toes, then the left side, and alternate a couple of times. And taking all the time you need to bring knees to chest, and either rocking forward and back or side to side. I find it's a little more restful to rock side to side, but choosing for your own energy. And then we'll roll up through our seat and to tabletop pose. If you need to pause and sort of stretch or roll out your wrists in between, take your time. It's your practice, your effort. Feel free to slide a blanket under your knees and take a few rounds of cat-cow. If this is feeling really good and necessary right now, then just continue this movement. If you'd like to get more into the outer hips, then we'll walk our knees closer together and untuck the toes, tops of feet down. And hip circles, inhaling to the right, hips back toward heels, and exhale to the left and forward. Nice and slow, you can even widen your hands or walk them forward a little bit, whatever feels supportive and good. If we're taking circles, pause to switch directions. And take one more circle if you're there, and then come back to neutral. This is a great time for your block or blocks if you have two. We'll step our right foot between our hands. Good for me, I like a blanket under the back knee because we'll be here for a little while. And for the comfort of my knee, I untuck my back toes, but you might experiment. Do both. Tuck your toes, untuck your toes, and see which feels better on your left knee. And from here, we want enough space from back knee to front foot to really sink our hips. And if you just have one block, you might bring it into your left hand. You might feel like that needs more support. Hands can always be down to the earth if they can reach easily. And we're letting our weight sink in the hips. But if this feels very intense as a stretch, then just sit your hips up and back an inch or two, almost like you're sending your hips towards your back heel. Just enough to feel a stretch, but not that over intensity. Good, and as always, once you're there, you'll rediscover that awareness of the exhale. Noticing if there's just a little more room to soften. Is there space to soften in your jaw or shoulders? Or is there energetic room and intention? Recognizing that whatever you're feeling, wherever you're feeling it, let that be okay. As long as it's not pain, we come out of the pose if there's pain. But if there's anything else, thoughts or emotions, just let it be. Hanging out for just 2 more breaths. Core support, you might exhale to squeeze your navel back towards your spine, sit your hips up and back. And very slowly, we'll start to straighten the front leg. Slide your hands closer to your hips. You might reposition your blocker blocks so they're on a good high setting for your hands. And so Ardha Hanumanasana, feeling a hamstring stretch or back of leg stretch for that right leg. Noticing if attention wanders, gently shepherd it back to the exhale. And allowing just 3 more breaths in this pose. And to transition, little bend in your front knee. Hands might come to the inside of your pose. We're gonna slide the right leg, you can heel toe, so that it comes out to the side. I'm gonna show you from a front view. For me, I'm on the hardwood floor of the studio, so I like to turn so that my right foot is on my sticky mat. Feel free to make that adjustment if your right heel doesn't feel so good on the hardwood, if that's what you have. All right, from here, we'll start to shift hips forward and back. So leaning forward and then leaning back towards your right or left heel. And you might notice that your right toes want to spin up toward the ceiling, and you can let that happen. It'll change the direction of stretch in the inner thigh, hamstrings. Moving like you're going 1 mile per hour, whatever that means for you. Your nice, slow, steady pace. Okay, for our hold here, think like you're in half of a child's pose. You can untuck your left toes and sit your hips back. Hands can take any shape, arms can take any shape. You can be lifted in the hips as far off of your back heel as you need to. But if you still have your block and you can pretty easily fold forward over your left thigh, you might use that block under your forehead, any position. Good. For some of us, we might still kind of be on our hands and knee, sinking the hips back as much as we can. Just 3 more breaths here. Take your time, come all the way back up. Slide your right knee to meet your left. Slide your blanket away if it's under your knees and come onto your belly. Good. Once you're there, stack hands, forehead, 2 hands like a pillow, or turn a cheek and find some rest. Again, bringing awareness into your lower belly. And breathing in such a way that is effortless, but perhaps you still feel that the belly pushes into your mat very gently. Take your time to find Sphinx pose, propping up on your elbows. And traditionally in Sphinx, we say elbows under shoulders, and that can feel like a big back bend. So if that feels like a lot in your lower back, walk your elbows a little bit further away from your hips so that your ribs are settling a little further down. Good. Wherever your arms are, roll your shoulders down gently away from your ears. And see if you can relax everything else. We'll have a couple options here. Chin may be parallel to the ground, or if it feels good, you can drop your head. Sometimes I like that variation. If there's a lot of tension in my neck and shoulders, that can feel relieving. Gentle awareness on the exhale. Feeling the heaviness of your lower body settling with each breath out. We're about halfway there. Another option in this pose to take it further would be to find seal pose. Feel free to stay where you are. Or walk your hands just a little wider than your shoulders, as wide as your sticky mat. And then lift your elbows, a little bigger back bend here. No need to take it here if this is uncomfortable in any way. Again, chin might be parallel with the earth or dropped heavy in space. Any pressure in the low back might be relieved by walking the feet further apart. And if it's still there, just come back down on your elbows or walk them further away. First shift is head slowly back to center if it's lowered. Dropping elbows down if they've lifted. Hands under shoulders next to ribs. Slowly come back to your child's pose. Good. For lower back, knees might be closer together. And you can stack fists under your forehead or create any cushion with forearms under forehead. Or if your belly wants a little more room, widening your knees. Allowing awareness to rest on the exhale. Making space to allow whatever is to be. We practice loving kindness toward ourselves by setting an intention not to force anything to happen. If we think, we think. And if we feel, we feel. That energy tends to simply move on its own, without our input, without pushing or pulling. You might like a deep sighing breath here if that feels good. Inviting a transition, hands under shoulders. Just start to press up and walk your hands forward back to tabletop. Make sure that your block or blocks are nearby. You might set it in front of you and then step your left foot forward. Beautiful. Adding that blanket if you need it, the cushion under your back knee. And starting to sink your hips for our low lunge variation. And finding a position for your props that's low enough that your shoulders can soften down, but high enough that it doesn't feel like you're rounding your back to reach the earth. You might register that this side feels different in some way. And again, inviting that sense of allowing it to be. We're all a little different right to left. And that doesn't point to anything being wrong. And holding here for 2 more breaths. Recruiting the lower belly muscles, navel to spine, to sit hips up and back. And straighten through your front leg if you need a little more space between the legs to feel stable. You can walk your back knee behind you, a space. Bringing your hands supportive under your shoulders instead of reaching out in space. And finding that sense of stretch, little bend in your left knee is always available as an option. And then settle into a kind of stillness. You might notice in stillness, there's certainly still movement. As we negotiate this certain balancing pose, there's micro adjustments in the body. And breath continues. In Yin Yoga, which this is a form of, we're asked to hold postures for about a minimum of 90 seconds. And in some poses, that can feel like forever. So giving yourself that loving kindness, knowing that it's not necessarily easy. And we'll take one more breath. Start to bend your knee, and then we'll heel toe your left foot out to the side, so that we're finding some stretch in the inner thigh. And start to rock back and forth, bringing the weight forward, hips back towards your right heel. And your toes might spin off the earth and then back on as you come forward. And take a few more rounds of movement. And then find your half child's pose. Untuck your right toes. Sitting back, if you can, on your heel. If not, walking your hands closer to your hips. Maybe even pointing your fingers behind you for a little support. And we'll just hold for 3 to 5 breaths of time. Take your time. You're at home, so if you love that pose, you can always just stay and hang out there. Meet us when you're ready. And we'll come to any position where we can sit. Hero poses works for me. You might be in seated, but grab your blanket. Let's see. Let's bring it so that it's folded about the length of your torso. Good. And then choice of your roll. We're going to lay on it in the belly. Most of us, I think, have done this before. So the fatter the roll, or short side to short side, is going to be more sensational. If you want a little bit less intensity, then you would roll it long side to long side, or just make it a skinnier version. Good. For your particular beach towel or blanket might be thicker than mine, you might not roll it all the way. If it feels too intense, then get up, unroll it a little bit, and place it back. When you're ready, place it in front of you on your mat so that you can hover over it in tabletop and slowly lower down. To remind ourselves, what we're looking for in position is between hips and ribs. So only in the fleshy kind of Pillsbury Doughboy bit of our midsection. So only where it's very soft. Not looking to have the blanket on our bones. So above hips, below ribs, and you might start in your Sphinx pose. For many bodies, that's just a little easier in sensation. If that's not true for you, you could experiment lowering down right away and see if that is more relieving, in fact. Any position for your head that's comfortable. And you may be immediately registering strong sensation. Maybe not. For me, it seems that no matter how many times I do this practice, this pose, I still have very strong sensation, especially at first. So to work with that sensation, we can employ some tools. That belly breath, almost like we are actively pushing the inhale to expand the belly into your blanket. That can provide some relief, and let the exhale melt your weight down. That might be more sensational. And ebb and flow between those two. Pushing the blanket away and sinking into the blanket. Again, we can walk the feet a little wider. See if that changes lower back sensation. And otherwise, we're simply here for time to acknowledge energy moving, to allow sensation to transform, and it inevitably does. Other tools we can employ are simple body scan. Is there room for me to soften perhaps the muscles in my face, the back molars, fingers, toes, sides of the neck? In some moments, it feels like awareness of a space softens it right away, and other times, perhaps we just set the intention, may this soften on its own. May this area release in its own time. We're here for one more minute. Deepening your breath just slightly. Start to bring your hands next to your ribs, under shoulders. And slowly press back to child's pose. Taking several deep, full breaths. And if you're very comfortable resolving to stay here for a while, we're not going anywhere you can't meet us. We'll meet in a seat when you're ready. Once you find your seat, bring your feet out in front of you wide as your sticky mat, and hands behind you, and let your knees rock side to side. And notice where this movement occurs in your lower back, the glutes. You might be massaging some of the soft tissue there. Take a couple more passes side to side. Next time your knees fall to the right, lift your left arm and come into a twist. So turning all the way to the right side, you might pause with hands on the earth. Maybe walk your elbows down. And coming down as far as your body allows. So for some of us, we can lay our full chest and belly toward the earth. For me, I just like to interlace my fingers and let my head relax. And here, allow your toes and ankles to soften. Letting most of your effort sink your weight on the exhale. Take a deep inhale. As you exhale, walk your hands closer to your hips. And turn back to face the center. Windshield wiper knees side to side. We'll find the other side when you're ready, knees to the left. Make sure that the feet are really wide, even wider than your sticky mat. Start to twist and then find your pose, nice and slow. You might walk your elbows down. Maybe your whole torso melts down. At the very least, see if it's comfortable to allow the head to rest. Like you're letting your forehead release toward the earth. Take a full breath in and out. Slowly rise up to your seat. And having your blanket and or block nearby, make your way onto your back. Once you're there, grab your knees, maybe rock side to side. If you feel like finding the great stretch, feel free. And our next pose will be candlestick. So the legs extend up toward the ceiling. Option for supported candlesticks. You can slide a block on the lowest setting or even your rolled up blanket underneath of your sacrum, so the lowest part of your back. And then extend your legs. You can always leave the hips down on the earth if that's the most comfortable. And again, we're looking for minimum effort. So for me, there's a little bend in my knees and my ankles and toes are totally relaxed. Feet can be together or separate, and arms are heavy at your sides. And let's create, if you would like, you can skip this if you want. Let's create one last bit of effort in the form of a breath practice. So it'll be our box breathing to start. We'll inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, hold the breath out for 4. As we continue for a few breaths, we're going to lengthen the exhale out. And we'll lengthen the hold out. So it'll be inhale for 4, exhale 4, and then inhale for 4, pause 4, and then exhale for 5, pause for 5. We'll just do a few rounds. When you're ready, meet on an exhale. And then inhale for 1, 2, 3, 4, pause, 2, 3, 4, exhale, 2, 3, 4, pause, 2, 3, 4, inhale, 2, 3, 4, pause, 2, 3, 4, longer exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, pause, 2, 3, 4, 5. Inhale for 4, pause 4, longer exhale for 6, pause for 6. And return to your natural breath, bend your knees. Let your feet hit the mat, remove any props. And make yourself very comfortable for your resting pose. Letting your weight fully relax, limb to limb, right to left, top to bottom, and front to back. Taking any last sighing breath. Give yourself over to rest. And I'll call you back in a few minutes. You're welcome to stay here as long as you like. If you intend to shift and deepen your breath, allow small movements and bigger breaths. Shifting in any way that you see fit. Take the next 5 to 7 breaths to find your seat. Bring a hand to your belly and a hand to your chest. Aware of these two spaces, your drive, your guts, your courage, your compassion and love, and the balance between the two. Perhaps setting the intention to use these inherent powers for good, especially for yourself. Thank you for being here. Namaste.